What is it like to make your first $1 million? Hey, this is a question that I never thought I would ever get asked. And this is not a question that I thought I would ever be able to answer, to be honest with you. I always had aspirations to be successful, and I think I've always had aspirations to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know to what degree I could take it to. I didn't know how far I could take it. And honestly, when I first made my first $1 million, when I had my first $1 million year, I will say, because I'm not going to look at the collective. I'm going to say when I had my first $1 million year, it didn't happen in the way that I thought it would happen, right? I always thought that making money would have to come from something I was passionate about. I thought it would have to be something I was intentionally trying to do. I thought it would be, I had to have a super high level of skills and knowledge and success beforehand in order to get to a certain level of success. And to be honest with you, it didn't happen that way. And the way that my wife and I made our first $1 million is kind of how I think a lot of entrepreneurs hit their first kind of like $1 million or have their first runaway business, if you will. And we started with something that we had no experience in. We actually started in a health niche that we didn't have previous experience in. We started with a business model that we didn't have previous experience in. And we actually modeled somebody else's business that we had never met or never knew. And it was actually in an article they had shared how they made $1 million selling this little piece of jewelry that holds essential oils. And we were like, oh, that's cool. And so we were like, let's try it. We had never done e-commerce before. We were thinking about, getting into e-commerce or doing something in the health space, but didn't know what we wanted to do. And we saw this article and we were like, hey, why don't we just try to do what that guy did? And we started out not doing exactly what he did. He had shown what design had worked best for him. We didn't start out with that design initially. We did some testing and started in January 2017 and really weren't getting any traction. We switched up the design and ended up, falling on this one design, which was the Tree of Life. And literally month after month after month, our sales were tracking the same sales that that guy had tracked, right? And so it was very weird in the sense that it didn't happen maybe the way that we thought, making $1 million would happen. Because I remember when we were starting to even think about getting into e-commerce, and you start kind of like going out and saying, okay, who else is doing e-commerce? How much are people making? And there was people saying that they were making $30,000 a month. So $30,000 a month at the time seemed like a great deal of money. And I'm not belittling it by any means. $30,000 is still a lot of money. But at the time, we looked at $30,000 like it was this pinnacle, right? Like if we could, oh my goodness, $30,000, somebody doing that in e-commerce, that's a crazy amount of money. I couldn't fathom making $30,000 in a month, especially because we were younger. We had just kind of got out of the high school, college area of our lives, and so $30,000. When you go to a job and they're onboarding you and they say, "Hey, we're going to give you a salary of $30,000, $36,000, $40,000, whatever it may be," that seems like a lot of money when you're getting into the real world. And, to learn that somebody can make this in a month the idea seems crazy. It doesn't seem like something that's real or that can happen. And so when we started, our goal was not to make $1 million in our first year. Our goal was not even to make $1 million with the business. Really, the focal point was, hey, if we could just be as successful as that person making $30,000, that would be great. I would love to make that. And we ended up scaling. We were using Facebook ads, and we ended up scaling and getting to $1 million. I think we had 65,000 customers our first year in business. And it's really interesting because I don't think we were ever focused on a million. I think the closer, in October, November, when we started getting closer and closer to the million, uh, it really hit us like, oh, we could do a million in a year. And it was exciting. But that was not our goal when we first started the business. I think we were just looking at the 30,000. But the other thing that I want to say is that we initially um, we're just trying to start something new, right? We were trying to start something fresh, something new, something that we had never done before. And I think that's one thing that's super important as an entrepreneur, right? A lot of entrepreneurs, they get very comfortable, right? So maybe you are somebody who's a mechanic. And so the way that you want to, grow a business or do a business is you want to go and you immediately want to work on cars. And I think one thing that a lot of people have to do is get out of their comfort zone. And so even if you're a mechanic and let's say working on cars is something that you feel very comfortable with, Try, being a mechanic on camera. Try being a mechanic with a course. Try being a mechanic selling parts instead of just, working on the cars, because what it'll make you do is it'll make you go outside of what you're comfortable with and make you look at things in a different light, in a different way. Like if we would have started that same business, but would have done it with a method, right? Because prior to that, we had been doing affiliate marketing and we had been doing affiliate marketing with blogs. So if we would have just said, hey, we're going to build something on a blog in this space, it would have been different. It probably wouldn't have worked out as well as it did. But because we were willing to try something else, which is e-commerce, a different model, a different way of doing business than we've ever done. Normally we focus on organic traffic. With this business, we focus on paid traffic. So there was just a lot of things that we were not comfortable with. And when you get outside of your comfort zone, what it inherently does is it makes you have to actually look at things and learn things and become what I like to call a student of the game. That is something that you'll see in a lot of my videos that I say is that you have to become a student of the game. And when you're doing something that you're very familiar with or you're very comfortable with, a lot of times you do not want to become a student of the game because you think you've mastered it already. And so when you step into doing something that's entirely new to you, where you're not the expert, where it feels uncomfortable, where you have to learn, you tend to become more of a student of the game because it's something that feels unfamiliar, it's something that you don't feel comfortable with, it's something that you don't have a bunch of knowledge around. And so naturally, it's going to make you want to go and learn what it takes to be successful in that space, in that area, in that model. And this is something that I think is super important when you're trying to make your first large amount of money, whether that's in a year, whether that's one time, whatever it may be. The more uncomfortable you can be, the faster you're going to get there. The more comfortable that you are, the harder it's going to be for you to get there. And the reason is because when you're comfortable, you're going to end up fighting yourself. When you're uncomfortable, you're not going to fight yourself. You're going to be willing to be a student of the game. You're going to be willing to learn. You're going to be willing to look at other people. You're going to be willing to listen to other people. You're going to be willing to put yourself out there a lot more because you're uncomfortable. And it's weird, right? It kind of sounds like it's counterproductive. Like if I was more comfortable, that means that it'd be easier and that means I'd be able to do it faster. And that's just not the case. What I find is the majority of entrepreneurs, when they have their first major success, is because they're doing something that they're not comfortable with. And so what I would encourage you to do, if you've been trying to, build a business, if you've been trying to find different ways to make money, or maybe you're trying to hit some goals that you're trying to hit, feel comfortable being uncomfortable. And the more that you can feel comfortable being uncomfortable, I think the easier it will be for you to hit those goals that you're trying to hit. And like I said, initially, when we did our first $1 million year, it was not us trying to do $1 million in a year. It was us learning a new business model. It was us learning a new niche. It was us learning a new target demographic. It was us. It was us learning the whole first year. Really, the whole first 2 years was us learning, and we're still learning. But it's because we were uncomfortable. It wasn't something that we were familiar with. Even the audience that we thought would be the buyers of our product were not the buyers. It was an entirely different demographic. Now, if we would have gone in and it would have been something we were comfortable with, we probably would have ignored a lot of the signs telling us that we need to transition to a different audience. We need to, understand that the demographic that we thought we were targeting is not the right demographic, and we need to transition to a different demographic. The creatives that we're creating maybe aren't going to work, so we need to switch. Like if we were totally comfortable and thought we knew everything and wouldn't have been students of the game, we would not been able to have that business be a success. But because we were doing something new, we were doing something different, and because we were willing to be uncomfortable, we were able to hit these goals. So hopefully this helps you when you're trying to go out and make your first million, first 100,000, whatever that number is for you. Hopefully this helps you. If you're doing something right now and it feels entirely comfortable to you, I would encourage you to go the opposite direction. Do something that feels entirely uncomfortable to you, because your willingness to learn, your willingness to adapt, your willingness to look at yourself and say, hey, I need to make some changes, is going to be far greater than if you're comfortable doing something and you think you know it already and you're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And I see this all the time. People just spin their wheels over and over again because they're too comfortable doing something. And so they're not willing to be students of the game. So be a student of the game and look how much further you get ahead when you're a student of the game and you get out of your comfort zone.